What's up, everyone, and welcome to the weekly Q&A. For our first question, Damien Vonderhaar wants to know if Star Wars will ever do a horror special like Werewolf by Night.
I figured this was an appropriate question because we're approaching Halloween. We still have a week to go.
Spooky season.
But still, Molly's got a spooky shirt on. I've put on my spookiest Star Wars-y shirt, which isn't that spooky. But I do think that there's a possibility for it. The question of like Star Wars and horror has been brought up before, and especially on the level of like, I don't think I would classify Werewolf by Night as horror. It wasn't that scary.
Yeah, it was just kind of like very stylized. It was in black and white, felt very much like it could be a monster movie of like the old monster movies like Swamp Thing, Mummy, all that stuff. So I think it's possible. They already did a Lego kind of like spooky version of a Lego Star Wars movie, which obviously was more geared towards children, but
again, yeah, not scary at all.
And they put out
terrifying tales.
Yeah, and they've put out a couple of books that are meant to be kind of like horror themed, so they might be testing the waters a little bit.
That's like Star Wars has always kind of dabbled in horror, mostly in the books and comics. Most recently, we've had like Tales from Vader's Castle. That's been going on for years, and I think they work really well. There's Death Troopers, which I would like. That's more of an R-rated Star Wars horror story, but it's a book, so you can get away with it. Red Harvest, stuff like that. But I do think that they could do something along the lines of Werewolf by Night. I don't see why not. I mean, even the Clone Wars had the Geonosian brain worms and the occasional spooky episode. So I think that sometimes people equate horror immediately with like lots of gore and being really, really intense. But if they kept it on that same level of, yeah, there's monsters in this, which there are plenty of monsters in Star Wars, then why not? Like, I say go for it. Do a little hour special. See what happens.
Yeah, I think it would be really fun. Like you said, it's not going to be anything rated R. It's not going to be anything like super gory. But you brought up the Clone Wars Geonosian like brainworm one. That's like such a cool episode, and it's got like, it feels very horror-esque. So if they did something like that, that would be fun. And
they've like kind of done even that story in two ways. The Geonosian part on the planet was more of a straight up like zombie, what's going on, trying to survive. And then when they go up into space and it's Ahsoka and Barriss, then it turns into like The Thing, where you don't know which clones to trust. Like there's a lot of different avenues they could go down. And yeah, I think Star Wars works for it. That there's one thing that I always think of is Cavan Scott, who is a big horror fan. I asked him about this once, and he just said that sometimes some horror stories like are all about the absence of hope, but Star Wars is like the antithesis of that. So I think as long as you don't lose that spirit of Star Wars when you're trying to do a scary Star Wars story, then you're fine.
Will asks if Luthen's actions could lead to the Ghorman Massacre.
So, in the last episode of Andor, Luthen is basically pushing the Empire to be more and more extreme. They're like, oh, we lost 80 million credits. It's like, okay, we're going to crack down on everyone. And stuff that would have put Cassian in jail for 6 months now puts him in jail for 6 years. The Ghorman Massacre is something we've talked about before. Mon Mothma has mentioned Gorman, so we're kind of building up to it. But that is a big event that helps galvanize her and kind of pushes her over the edge to be like, you know what, Palpatine's a monster, and I'm going to say it publicly, and it makes her a traitor to the Empire, and she has to go on the run. So yeah, I do kind of think that what Luthen is doing could lead to something very, very bad like that.
Yeah, and like timeline-wise, when does the actual Ghorman Massacre take place, and when does Mon Mothma say that publicly?
2 years, I believe. It's 2 years before the Battle of Yavin, so we're still like 2 to 3 years away from that in the series right now. Mm-hmm. We're not exactly sure where that might be. So that might be like the second or third arc of season 2 if they're going to cover it.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think Luthen's actions are absolutely going to lead to bad stuff like the Ghorman Massacre. In the previous episode, he was kind of listening in on that police report over the radio or whatever that was, and you could hear them say that they took a bunch of Aldani people into custody, and he didn't even really, like, bat an eye at that. So it's like, it's something that probably comes with the territory of a rebellion, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think, maybe he's not really thinking that far ahead.
I think he is. He's just not caring about it. I mean, that's the big thing that Mon Mothma's like, people are going to suffer. And he's like, yeah, get on board or don't.
Yeah.
But that kind of seems to be his ideology, is that people have to suffer for a revolution. And yeah, I think people are going to, obviously, but he and Clea just kind of shrug that off, where Mon Mothma cares and is not going to just take anyone's suffering lightly. Mm-hmm. So yeah, like it's a weird thing to explore, where maybe Luthen does lead to the Ghorman Massacre, but then that is in turn going to lead to Mon Mothma creating the Rebel Alliance in earnest. Mm-hmm. And just kind of them touching on the terrible things that have to happen for good things to happen. It's really interesting. The show is going in that direction.
Yeah, and he mentions that, like, the Empire is choking us slower and slower to the point where we don't even realize it. And it's like, to him, they're already suffering. They have been suffering this entire time. So I guess it's kind of like, well, if that happens, it happens. But yeah, we're suffering either way.
Yeah, he's trying to wake people up. And like, oh, the Empire's really choking us now. And now people are going to notice. So now they're going to start fighting back. Yeah, I don't know if he thought that far ahead or if he even cared to. I think he was just trying to get everyone to wake up and start fighting. I assume that's his goal.
Spiral wants to know if any of Cassian's lines from Rogue One will be taken from Nemik's Manifesto.
They specifically mentioned the make 10 men feel like 100. I could see that. I mean, I do think that we're going to see or hear something familiar from Nemik's Manifesto. We'll realize that, oh, that inspired him in Rogue One.
Mm-hmm. I hope we do get something more from that, because that was such a interesting little moment where she was like, no, he really wanted you to have it, and I would hate for it to never come back up again.
I really don't think they're gonna just drop that. It's like his sister, where we had to wait a few episodes, but they did mention his sister again and say, like, stop looking for her, and he won't. Mm-hmm. I think you suggested he could read it in prison.
If they, because you pointed out that he didn't have his stuff with him, and his stuff was back at the room, whatever tropical condo that was. Uh-huh. But maybe they let him get that stuff. I don't know.
I would accept it if he pulled it out of his pocket in prison, if he smuggled it in somehow. It's the prop fairy that, when Luke throws his lightsaber away on the second Death Star, but then he has it again back on Andor. It's like, well, did he go retrieve it? No, just the prop fairy got it for him. Mm-hmm. When Kylo Ren leaves his helmet on Starkiller Base, but then he has it again in The Last Jedi, it's the prop fairy did it.
I mean, he probably gets one phone call, right? Maybe he calls her and is like, hey, bring my stuff.
Yeah, sure. Like, there's a way we could rationalize it. I believe in the prop fairy, and I hope everyone else does. But yeah, I like the idea that he would spend time in prison reading Nemik's Manifesto when he has a lot of time on his hands. But I absolutely don't think they're going to just drop that. Our friends at Force Center suggested, like, the last line could be rebellions are built on hope. Something along those lines. But make 10 men feel like 100 is another one that, feels very inspirational. Mm-hmm. And it would be cool if he used words from Nemik to inspire everyone about to go on this suicide mission.
Ivan Blevins asks if Luthen could be getting his artifacts from Dr. Aphra, and Scorponel asks if there's a chance we'll ever see that character in live action.
I like the idea. I don't think we're going to get any sort of confirmation. It would be funny if Clea just said, like, you have a message from Aphra or something. She has a delivery. Like, that'd be dumb fun. I don't think Andor is going to be the show that does something like that.
Probably not. I don't see Aphra selling / working for someone like Luthen, but like fancy Luthen. I don't know how else to...
I don't know. She's worked for rich people before, but she tends to steal from them in the end. So that's kind of the thing that's pulling me back. Like, she works with Ronan Tag and Domina Tag, and she's still always trying to come out on top and find a way to backstab them and take the valuable stuff for herself. Who knows? Maybe his shop is full of fake stuff, and it's all just a cover anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that would be a connection that we would see in this show.
No.
But it could be fun just as headcanon.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's fine to think, a young and up-and-coming rogue archaeologist is selling stuff on the black market. Sure, why not? Will we ever see her in any series in live action? I think there's a chance. I mean, we've seen Black Chrysanthemum started in the Darth Vader comics and then was a prominent character in Dr. Aphra. And then all of a sudden, he just kind of, left the series, which I thought that is weird, and he never came back. Well, now we know why. It's because they were going to use him in the Book of Boba Fett. That's my assumption. Now, I don't think they would, stop the Aphra comic to bring her into live action, but she's a character that I could see popping up somewhere.
Yeah, live action for sure. And I would love if she got her own show, because she's very much like an Indiana Jones kind of character, and I think that appeals to a wide audience, not just Star Wars fans. So that's an opportunity for, Disney to bring in more fans.
It's one of those things where when they introduced the character, or when they announced she was going to have her own series, I was like, really? Her? I wasn't crazy about her in the Darth Vader comics, but then when you start the series and I'm like, oh, they're using her to help teach us about ancient Star Wars history. It's actually, it was a lot more fun and weird and wild than I ever thought it would be. Kieran Gillen and now Alyssa Wong have put out some of the most fun, just swing for the fences Star Wars stories I can recall in recent years. So I'm kind of I would want Alyssa Wong maybe to finish her run of the comic first. It's kind of the same way that I want the High Republic to wrap up its story and finish introducing us to that side of the world before the Acolyte comes out and we really dive into it elsewhere. Just because I think they have done obviously so much to create the character. But she is one that I would welcome in a live action role. Plus,
anytime we can get more main characters that are openly gay, I think that's a win.
And we have Vinta and Vel and Cinta. Vinta's their couple name.
Vinta.
Yeah. Which still, I think that they need to go further, because Dr. Aphra is not sneaking little hand touches kind of gay. She is full on, this is a page of two characters kissing, her and Magna Tolvin. I wouldn't want them to dance around that fact.
Yes. Elliot Finn asks how we plan to cover Tales of the Jedi next week.
Yeah, okay. So next week, Andor and Tales of the Jedi come out on Wednesday. It's a lot.
And all the Tales of the Jedi episodes are dropping at once?
Yes. All 6 episodes, which we've been lucky enough to see them already, so that helps a lot. But our plan is to leave Wednesday as Andor Day. Still gonna wake up, watch it, do the review, and then in the evening we'll do No Ifs, Ands, or Buts. And then Thursday, that'll just be Tales of the Jedi Day. And we're gonna put out a review for that. And we're gonna live stream. It's probably not gonna be at the same time. We have some plans Thursday evening, some spooky plans for ourselves. So we're probably gonna stream a little earlier in the day, but we will still do a live stream discussion.
Yeah, because there'll be, I think, a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we have to be careful now because there's no social embargo. We're allowed to tweet about it, but we can't really. I don't YouTube is social media still. So, but I want to be careful there.
Well, I mean, judging by the trailers that they put out, people know which characters are getting episodes. So,
and I mean, I've tweeted that I really like the Dooku stuff, and I look forward to talking about that.
Yeah. So we know ahead of time, like, what characters are going to be asked about.
Yes, I think that's true. But yeah, we plan on doing Thursday as like Tales of the Jedi Day.
On to YouTube questions. Michael Caddock wants to know if we'd want to see a mini-series about Kylo Ren's early years as Snoke's apprentice.
So this was building off of last week. We were talking about, should we get more villain-centric stories? Sorry. I could feel it coming up and I tried to talk anyway. And could we get like a mini-series like Obi-Wan Kenobi, just 6 episodes, not a multi-season story about Kylo and Snoke? I mean, I think that could shed a lot of light on the sequel trilogy, the same way that, you know, the Clone Wars demystified some things about the prequel trilogy, answered some lingering questions. I think there's value in that. It's not really something that I'm like, yeah, do that next.
Mm-hmm. I think of all the villain origin stories, I don't think Kylo Ren's is up high on my priority list.
It's like, we know everything I think we need to know. It would still be interesting.
I mean, we got a little bit of this in the comics, right? Mm-hmm. We saw a little bit of how this kind of early relationship started, how it happened. I don't care to see Snoke again.
I was going to say, it's more Snoke. I'm a little Snoked out, even though we didn't get him much in the films themselves.
He just ended up being like an actual puppet, like a chemically created puppet.
Yeah, and just so much of the online discussion was about Snoke that I got tired of him. Like, I cheered when he got cut in half in The Last Jedi because I was like, oh, we're done with him. So I'm not crazy about, like, let's spend a lot of time on Snoke, but I do think it would be interesting. So many shows have been doing this, not just Star Wars, but like Book of Boba Fett and Andor. We're getting kind of present day flashback stuff. It could be cool to see a follow-up to the Rise of Kylo Ren comic where Kylo Ren and Snoke are doing whatever. But then you could also flash back to before Ben fell, because we know Luke and Snoke had some sort of relationship. Like, Snoke would show up and be like, hello, Skywalker. He would appear as a friend and try to help out. So there are definitely some things that I would be interested in seeing. But I'm more excited about doing stuff like The Acolyte or even Andor, where we're focusing on lesser known characters.
I would be more interested in seeing more Ben Solo stuff, specifically if he is a Force ghost, him visiting Rey.
We have so many stages of Ben Solo that we could revisit in his life, and we talked about the Lego specials earlier, but yeah, Summer Vacation showed him as a Force ghost, which is not canon strictly, but to me, I'm like, good, thank you.
Yeah. Dave McHugh asks if Cyril could use Cassian's sister as bait to draw him into a trap.
I think that's interesting.
That is interesting.
Because Cyril does know from like the first episode or two that Cassian came into that bar asking about his sister. So even if he didn't have access to her, I mean, well, he might be able to find her through his data analysis job now. But if at some point he does join the ISB and he can just use that information, like leak some stuff. There's a girl from Kenari seen on X planet, and just try to draw Cassian to him. I think that is a real possibility.
Yeah.
Especially with Marva warning him, like, stop looking for your sister.
Yeah.
Like, they're gonna keep following up on that.
I still, it's a bummer to think about, but I still kind of think she's dead. But if she isn't, this would be a great way, I think, to bring her into the series.
Yeah, or even if she is dead, like, Cyril doesn't have to have her. He can just say.
Yeah.
Like, all Cassian did was follow up on a lead about a girl from Kenari. Mm-hmm. So Cyril just needs to plant some little Kenari clues around, and Cassian might go.
Kenari clues.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or if it's not specifically the sister, it could just be information about what happened on Kenari.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's a lot of information Cyril could use, and we know he's still thinking about Cassian. So
he could even use some of that information to try to recruit him. I don't know, like to try to be like, Marva's not a good person. Your parents weren't good people. This is what they did. They took you from your home, blah, blah, blah.
I don't think he's going to try to recruit Cassian, but to break him? Sure. Yeah.
Agent W wants to know if we'll see an episode of Andor that takes place at the same time as Secret Cargo in Star Wars Rebels.
So that episode takes place right after the Ghorman Massacre. It involves Mon Mothma talking about how terrible Palpatine is. That's when she has to go on the run. And in Star Wars Rebels, we see our main heroes help her out, pick her up, deliver her to Dantooine, where she gives a big speech and officially starts the Rebel Alliance. And she's basically like, hey, I'm sending out coordinates to all Rebel cells. Meet us here if you want to team up. And that's kind of the gist of that episode. I think it would be really neat to see what Cassian was doing at that point in time.
Yeah. I don't know that we'll see this. It would have to be in season 2. But if this were a show about specifically Mon Mothma, then I'd say yes. But because this is a more Cassian's show, I don't know. Like, she might mention that she's going to do this, but I don't know that we would see it.
Well, I think we could see it all from Cassian's perspective. And I'm assuming by then he will know her, have met her, and then if she has to go on the run, and we know he's not with her, so he might be like freaking out trying to find her, or he's on some other mission. But I think it would be cool if we saw her speech in the Imperial Senate, and then we could also see Cassian watching her speech from Dantooine. That it might not be a Mon Mothma centric episode. I don't really think it should be, because we already got that in Star Wars Rebels. But to see the exact same storyline, but from Andor's point of view, I think would be really cool.
Rob You Blind asks if Disney will ever regain the distribution rights to the Indiana Jones films.
I don't know, but it's something that I've also been wondering. You know, we're getting...
I didn't know they lost them.
Well, they were... It's like this weird... It was a Lucasfilm production, but also Paramount Plus, or Paramount distributed it. So now you can watch Indiana Jones on Paramount Plus. But Indiana Jones 5 is going to be Lucasfilm and a Disney production.
Okay.
So I assume it'll be on Disney Plus without the other 4. And yeah, there is a part of my brain that's just like, this isn't right.
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of similar to early Marvel stuff when it was, or just early superhero movies in general were kind of done by different studios. So I don't know.
I was going to bring that up as well, because the easy solution is to just buy Paramount. Like, they bought 20th Century Fox. They shouldn't do that. Like, Disney feels like it's so quickly, if not already, approaching a monopoly sort of thing.
Yeah, they're like, oh, this is slightly annoying to us. Let's just buy it.
Yeah. Like, I do not condone that, but like, I could see them trying to, but they haven't done it with Sony. So like, the Spider-Man movies are still else I don't know where they're streaming, but they're not on Disney Plus. So I don't know. They can work out deals. Like, they didn't buy Netflix, but they can put the Daredevil, all of those Marvel shows are now on Disney Plus. So
yeah, they could like rent them out for a period of time. So when the next indie movie is out to stream on Disney Plus, they could give them the rights to stream the other indie movies for like a certain amount of time.
Or it's just something where I don't know how all these streaming deals work, but yeah, they could just say, here, we'll pay you X amount to have them on Disney Plus for a year, and then they re-up that, or they don't once the year is up. I mean, that's kind of how Netflix works, I think, is they just pay for the rights until they don't want to anymore. Yeah, I don't know how the whole streaming industry works, but there are ways for them to do it. I don't know that it's going to happen, though. Sad. That's all the time we have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just put it in the comments below or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
And as always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.